Welcome back to the Wrong Advice Podcast. I'm your host, John Picciuto, and I'm very excited to have Gino Battiston on the line with us today. Gino, how are you doing, my friend?
Excellent, John. Thanks for inviting me. Pleasure to be here in your podcast.
I'm so happy to have you. Can you give us a quick introduction to who you are, Gino?
Of course, my pleasure. Yeah, I'm Argentinian. I've been traveling lots of countries in Latin America. My fathers are from Ecuador. One of my mother is actually from Ecuador and my father is Argentinian. So I have a pretty good mixture between many countries around Latin America. I've been traveling lots of countries, documenting and all that. And well, I'm a filmmaker, also a film photographer. Been working on the film making industry for 30 years or so. And well, that's my insight right here.
When did you start? I guess, when did you first pick up a camera?
Beautiful. That's an extraordinary situation because I was 8 years old. That's
Wow.
somewhere 1989, and we were traveling actually with a painter, a famous painter from Argentina. His name was Orlando Pardo. We were traveling for an exhibition on Ecuador, and I was handing that tiny cameras of 110 millimeters, the shorter ones and tiny ones with that little negatives.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly, when we were traveling, some rainbows came up between, the mountains, and I was just clicking and clicking and clicking. And that was a beautiful result. I got in love with this thing of, capturing time and moments. It was a beautiful situation, really.
That's amazing. I mean, so I tell the story a lot. I came to photography much later in life. But like for someone like you that it's been sort of ingrained at you from such a young age, I'm almost have like this feeling of jealousy that you're able to like find the thing that you love at such a young age. Obviously, fast forward, 25 plus years. Explain to me sort of like the path that your life took. Like you obviously knew at a young age that you loved to take photos and make films. But what was that process like for you growing up in Argentina? And sort of like what made you into the photographer and documentarian that you are today?
Beautiful question. Yeah, it was a pretty tough thing to decide, because in Latin American it's pretty hard. Your parents are always telling you, don't be an artist, don't get into that. You're gonna be poor or whatever. My guess is everywhere is likely. But when I was 18, I was reading pretty lots of books around philosophy, Bergson's ones, Gilles Deleuze, Leibniz, things about, the virtual aspect of reality, not just the tangible things, but into metaphysicals in philosophy. So my guess was, okay, art is going to be a path around these two. You undercover or discover what's behind what we touch, see, and hear. And it was a long path, really, because I had to work a lot, really, on the film industry from Sunday to Sunday. It was a pretty hard time, but I managed to get along with my artistic needs in parallel. So yes, it was hard, but it was beautiful. I got into some exhibitions internationally, and then that went pretty well. So I was encouraged to continue, of course. Thanks for that.
Hmm. So I've found that as my career sort of has evolved from a photographer, I just
Yeah.
recorded my very first music video for a band this weekend. It seems like sort of a natural progression for a photographer to sort of develop that videography, cinematography aspect of their art. What was that transition like for you in that process of like incorporating a new sort of tool to your arsenal? And do you have a preference whether it is filmmaking or photography?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah. Well, in fact, yeah, it was like in this search, um, I came along with drama. I studied for 5 years in a team of actors and directors here in Mendoza because we don't have any filmmaking, schools here. So I had to, search along with the individual aspects of what cinematography means. So I studied drama for 5 years, and something exploded in my mind around the possibilities. So I started to lurk at the old nouvelle vague things and neorealism things from Italy and Europe in the 60s, 70s. And I got in love with that kind of filmmaking, where you don't have any scripts. You are just experimenting with actors, experimenting with light at the same time. And, the stories aren't there really. You have to just try to evoke things from what you are searching. And that unexpected aspect of filmmaking is what got me into that, really. So I didn't, forgot about photography because I'm pretty in love with film photography and the process and all that, because it really trains your intuition. I'm about that. I'm about trying to feel things more than think things on art, at least.
Hmm.
So filmmaking was that opportunity to, experiment more and try to search what's behind things. And that's why, but I don't have any preference really between them. It's just I'm stepping forward and trying to do both, and both really need them. It's like photography, of course, and film. It's like, for me, it's like the same thing, because if photography doesn't move or whatever, doesn't mean anything for me really. You can capture many things from a photography, even the movement that was there. So for me, both are like just one arm and the other. It's
Yeah,
not
they
one
go.
or the other, really.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
go hand in hand. That's
yeah,
cool. It's you've struck me as a person who's like immensely comfortable in their art making ability. I for a long time have felt as if I don't belong, right? Like it's very easy to be struck with imposter syndrome and self doubt.
exactly.
You've obviously had a lengthy career. I'm curious how those types of feelings have, either positively or negatively impacted your ability to make art.
Exactly. Great questions you have, John, there. And yeah, it's interesting because many artists, well, there are so many good artists in this crazy world. You can, find lots of things. So it's not about being good or bad, really. It's about a way of living to myself.
Mm.
I think it like, well, I just decided to do this mainly because I don't feel very comfortable with the system, in fact, like that kind of, being a voluntary slave in this world, working from 9 to 5, running and, running cars and burning oil and all that thing. And to me, art, it's like a resistance. It's like, I don't want this. I don't want to break this world with my time and be, that obsessive around life. And so my guess is that art could be and should be somehow anonymous. It's
Mm.
like it's like an intimate relationship with existence. And that's enough. Of course you have to live and you have to have some money to go on. But I'm even thinking, and I'm pretty off the grid right now. So my life is pretty minimalistic. I do have whatever I need to live, but I don't have too much expectations around having things, looking for things, or having more money, or even being famous. I've been running from being famous a lot. I got the chance to do it, and talk about myself and put myself on, many exhibitions around the world, and I've done that. But I'm not that kind of obsessive around social media. I'm just trying to do art
Yeah.
and keep it going. That's all.
Yeah, I find that very interesting because I feel a similar way. Like, obviously, I want to earn enough money to survive and live and pay my bills.
Yeah.
But the materialistic aspect of life is not that enticing to me as it was, say, in my 20s, right? In my 20s, 95% of what I was doing with my life was based on getting more stuff, right? And I think there was
Exactly.
like a shift in myself sometime after like my 30th birthday, or my early 30s. I'm 36, where those
Hmm.
things stop mattering, right? It's not anymore about getting another thing. It's more about life and its experiences and what it has to teach me, which I've
Hmm.
found to be a really wonderful sort of unfolding of the way that my life has
Hmm.
sort of gone. When you sort of at 18 decided that you wanted to be an artist, and you spent those 5 years working in drama, did you
Yeah.
have the support of your family? You mentioned early on that they, kind of.
No. No, in fact, the crazy thing is that my father was an actor.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, that's a crazy one because we had a discussion, and why do you're so hard on me. You don't want me to be an artist, and you were one. You decided to quit, but I don't have to quit. That's your choice, not mine. But whatever. Sorry, repeat the question
Yeah, I was
because
saying, I was just wondering
I'm.
what type of support you had from your family at the time, because they were
Yeah,
trying to
yeah.
encourage you to not do what you ended up doing.
Until they saw an actual film of mine that got into some exhibitions, that went pretty well.
Hmm.
But you have to. The thing is, this system, it's like pushing you to take decisions before you really realize what you want to do.
Ooh,
That's
yeah.
crazy because that's the problem, and that's making us taking more time to decide, because the pressure doesn't allow you to really get inside yourself and decide and discover who you are, what do you want to do. So I took my time. I took my time from 18 to 20, whatever. And I was like, no, I'm not going to any universities that you're telling me. I'm pretty sorry. I'm going to take my time. I'm going to head up with my camera. I'm going to go out, and search for things, even if I'm going to be poor for some years. That doesn't matter. And that I'm so glad I did it, because with time, you realize that the the sensibility you have to have for to make art, to make good art, in fact, it's pretty, sensitive. So you have to take care about that. I've seen many artists, successful artists, that lost that thing, and even asking me what to do. So, and that's because they were too aimed into success.
Mm.
So art is a long path. It's a long-term path. You really have to take your time, and and protect yourself from that, to still have that spark, have that spark, and don't lose that spark.
Gina, I think you said something which is so crucially important, because there is a 10-year period from like 18 to 28 of my life where everything I was
Yeah.
doing felt like it was out of my own control, right? It was, I needed to
Mm-hmm.
get this job and go to this college and get this degree and do this and do that and do this and do that. And never
Mm-hmm.
in any of this time was I ever like given or afforded the opportunity to stop and say, hey, what the fuck am I doing? Am I happy? Like, do I want to do this? Do I want to do that? No, it was like more what society had told me that I needed to do. And it wasn't until losing my job in the pandemic where, the whole world is shutting down around me and there's nothing to do that I was able to sort of look inside and be like, what makes you happy? Like, what do you want to do? And it's so unfortunate that so many people discover later in life the things that make them
Yes.
happy, because we're on this merry-go-round where we need to be here by this age and here by that age and this by this age. And it's never like, well, where do you want to be at 25 or 30 or 50 or 60? A lot of life is pre-planned to a date in the future when
That's
you
right.
can stop working. But like, that's no way to live a life. I think that's
No.
an incredibly important thing that you said that I think gets lost on a lot of people.
But this sorry to interrupt, but this generation, the one that you mentioned, because we had the pandemic and many things going on around the world, we are realizing that. We are changing that. We are, raising kids, trying to let them be as free as possible to decide. Yeah, go on, please.
I was just say, growing up in South America probably had its own unique challenges and also benefits. Give me sort of an idea of what it was like being in your 20s, trying to chase an artistic dream, and sort of like the highs and the lows of what that pattern has looked like.
That's pretty important. Great questions, John. Having a great time here. Well, yes, South America has this problem. There's lots of poverty, really. So if you have a good situation, you're pretty lucky, And so it's pretty difficult to go and do art without, realizing that your art has to reflect that situation in some way. It's not that you just have to do social art, but if you are sensible and sensitive, yes, that's gonna you're gonna have a shock around it. That's the hard part around art, but the beautiful part around it is the cultures, because you have many original cultures around our countries, and they are pretty artistic in a practical and way, in an everyday choice. And so it's a mixture between those poles, if you wish. So when I was 24, I was, handling a Nikon F2 1975 with my 35 millimeter rig. Was thinking, what do I do? Okay, I don't know. So I was deciding in every corner where to go, left or right. Okay, that was the experiment. So I was like left and right, then left and right. And I found a group of kids working on the streets, cleaning cars, windshields, when they stopped at the corners. And I sat down there, and the old one was like 13 years old. So you had like 5, 6, 7-year-old kids there working on the street. And I sat down with my camera, preparing, to take some shoots, and immediately they went around me, and we were like friends in an instant. And I was taking pictures. I have those on the NFTs also. They went pretty well, and we got so good. Like that was a so good relationship that I went to their school. I was there like teaching photography for them and their college. So it was a pretty interesting situation, but you have to allow yourself to live like that, you know.
Hmm.
And I was cleaning also the windshields, and I was making some money with them on the street, you know. And then we went to a store and we bought a roll of film, and we continued shooting the situation. And before that first week, one day, the police came in front of me and took them by surprise, you know, pretty aggressively. And they were asking me, "You want to come? You want to come?" It was a pretty hard situation. They disappeared in front of me forever. I never saw them again.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, Latin America has those situations that really moves you to be more inclusive in a way, you know, tolerant and inclusive in a way. And yes, it's as you said, it's tough, but at the same time, it's encouraging, you know. It's making you include more realities around your existence. It's not just you, and you.
Mm.
That's a good part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I unfortunately, I mean, well, fortunately, I don't have relatable instances like that in my life, right? Like, I can't, you know,
Hmm.
I can say, wow, that's so hard and wow, that's so tragic, but I can't relate to that. I don't have that life experience. I'm super
Hmm.
curious how an experience like that shapes your art making, right? Like, that was probably somewhat of a
That's
traumatic
right.
experience to see these kids who you spent a number of days with out on the streets, photographing, working with, disappear. Like, how,
Hmm.
what does that do to you as, you know, a human being, as Gino the artist?
Yeah, that's pretty hard because you know, when you realize that this happens around you, you just can't turn off that thoughts. So the way to overcome those is include these situations in your art.
Mm.
That's the only way to do it. So a huge part of my work does resemble these social aspects that have to be seen, in fact. You know, I try to recover anonymous and peripheric stories, not just on photography, but also on film. And that went pretty well, in fact, because I had an experience, a pretty tough experience. One of my friends, my closest friends from my 30s, when I was your age, he's an actor, and he had an argue with their colleagues, and he was living with them. So he went to the street because, you know, he had to leave the situation, and he went living on the streets. And it was pretty hard also for me because he's so sensitive and so creative. And that experience, you know, I was thinking, man, this guy is gonna, you know, take his life any any day. So the way that we overcome that situation is I was like walking with him from quite a time to, you know, being a companion, and we started to record with a mic, because I'm also interested in sound, and I studied sound engineering, and so I have my own studio. And he came to my studio every day, and we were making like this thing around self hypnosis, and closing his eyes, and you know, deriving, fabulating around his own life in the street. And man, if you hear those recordings, you're gonna throw a couple of tears for sure. You know, it's pretty incredible. So we kind of save his life
Wow.
doing this. And one day I was in a meeting with a famous director from Ecuador, and he's pretty famous. And he was telling us, well, I came here to Argentina because I want to, you know, document the social situation in Argentina, wherever. So I told him, I got your movie. It's about a guy that's on the streets, that's a pretty good artist and actor, and in fact, he's pretty good. So I had the vision that he was on a park, laying down on a bank. And because I didn't know where he was really, I stopped seeing him for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And this director tells me, okay, let's do the movie. Let's find the guy. Like, we went to that park and he was there sitting on that and on that. Yeah, it was pretty incredible because it was like a vision. And he was sleeping, laying down on this bank. And I woke him up. Man, woke up, Victor. We are going to make a movie about your life, bro. Really? Yeah, yeah. The director is here. And he woke up. We went to that car, and that was a beautiful experience because that documentary won a prize by Marcelino Botín.
Wow.
And yeah, it went to TRIBECA.
Wow.
TRIBECA, yeah. And it got pretty famous short and went, to many countries around the world, Switzerland, Germany, France, Latin America, etc. And then the crazy thing about this story is that Victor was showcased in the Cannes Festival because he did a feature as the main character for a movie, pretty well-known movie. It's Muere Monstruo Muere, Die, a Monster Die, and it's an horror movie, and he's the main character. And I've seen Kate Blanchett, hugging him and crying when she saw that movie. Yeah, so
wow.
That's a pretty great, example of what the power of art can do to your life. Yeah. If you realize that art is actually living by itself, it's not just the technical aspect that we are seeing. There's something behind what we are doing when we are doing art.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful, Gino. So like I would classify you as like a storyteller, right? So whether you're telling, a story via a documentary, via sound, via film, via photos, you're out to like depict the human experience. And it's irrelevant necessarily what the medium is. You're out to tell a story. Do you look at like a particular subject, a particular matter, and do you see it in your head as whether this would make a better photograph than a film, this would make a better short clip versus a stagnant image? Like, how does your process sort of evolve from idea to execution to finalizing the image or the story?
Thanks for the question. It's beautiful. Yes, for me it's like an exercise for intuition. So I don't rely on scripts. I don't rely on preconceived thoughts. I just get impressions of what I should be doing. So the impressions come and they are remnant, so they don't go out. They stay for a couple of days or weeks and, insisting just, It's like something that doesn't go. And then I do realize that I have to do something around it. And then the process starts. So I really respect that relationship I have with art, not trying to force things. Even when I do commercial things, I don't do 45 takes of things, and I don't do, I don't put 5 lights. I try to work with natural lights. Mm-hmm. I try to work with the spontaneous aspect and creativity from the actors. I let them do their thing and, encourage, in fact, to bring out more of their own creativity, their own creative process. Also from musicians, As an example, we're doing right now a short film with Ernesto Cisneros. He's a great musician from Cuba. And in the experiment around this series of shorts is, Ernesto, you do the music just with the concept, without seeing any edits or stills or whatever. And I'm gonna edit myself the material without hearing any music. Let's do it for the same period of time. Say this is an example. Shorts are from of 2 minutes. So we are making pieces. He's doing his piece for 2 minutes, and I do my own. And then we put that all together, and it goes beautifully. It's perfect. You have the cuts, you have things, you have the rhythm, you have everything. Because when you base yourself, and I learned this from Gilles Deleuze in the Image Time thesis that I recommend a lot. It's a beautiful book, Image Time. And audio and visuals don't have to rely on the other really to make art. If you allowed the individual things to just search for their own glory, if you wish, the encounter will happen. The between the two will happen. Of course, you can then just adjust some things, but if you do that from the start, you're not losing lots of things that you even cannot think, because as Jill says, there's some unthinkable thing on thoughts. We cannot think about everything that's happening because we have a point of view in this universe, and that's limited. So as Bergson says, intuition, it's a way to understand the essence of things, because reasoning is like going around the thing. But when you intuit something, you are the thing for an instant. You become the thing for an instant. Even if you don't know what's around it, you can feel what it is. You can understand the essence of it. And that's a powerful thing for artists, because if you resemble that power, you evolve that in many aspects, and you have many ways to evolve that sensations. And I prefer that method around instead of thinking and trying to control things while you shoot, while you direct, while you make your photographies. Because if you adapt to the situations, and that's kind of depersonalization aspect of art, forget about your ego. Things are going to be there around, even if you don't try to control them. Of course they are going to be there. Mm-hmm. So it's better if you try to discover things other than inventing things,
Oh, absolutely. I think that's a crucially important perspective on art. It's very easy to get wrapped up in the ego of things, like comparing yourself and your journey to someone else's success and failures and such. I think it's just a wonderful example of how art brings people together, because you and I literally met on Twitter talking about NFTs and photography, right. And I think that's incredible. I'm curious what your journey has been like in the NFT space. There's an image of yours that was like a woman and a mountain. I believe it was a double exposure that you took, which I'm assuming was taken on film.
Yes. Yeah. Two takes on film.
Yeah. It's just such a God, I don't even know how to describe it. It's beautiful. It's powerful. There is an ethereal power to the image that I just was like really struck by when we were like talking, many weeks ago. Talk to me about what your process has been like, evolving in this new Web3 space. And if you're having successes, like talk to me about how that's impacted your ability to continue to create, and what that process has been like for you.
It's funny because that take that you're talking about sold yesterday.
Oh, wow. Congrats.
And yeah, thanks. Mentalist, the great, it's my friend. In fact, it's a great collector from the NFTs, but we are just chatting and knowing each other. He's such a great and interesting guy. And yes, he saw that, and there were like 5 editions of that photograph. And I did that on purposely because I don't want to see much editions. And he told me, just burn the rest, put one with the whole price, and I will buy it.
Wow.
And he did it yesterday. Yes, that's a beautiful thing that I discovered a couple of years ago. What I do really is to layer 2 negatives inside the enlarger. So I take 2 different roles, one with the subject, the other one with the situation around.
Mm-hmm.
And then the thing is, again, I don't try to control things, so I'm really searching for the unexpected, and that's more surprising. It's like you become as an spectator of your own art, and it's beautiful because the process is more engaging. It's like you're a kid again. You're discovering things. And you're not the master of photography,
Mm-hmm.
again. So this thing is, I search for the situation in both roles. And then in the lab here in the dark room, I start layering and looking at the relationships between them, magic happens. In this situation that you were telling, her dress was in fact in line with the mountains. When I put it, in that magical moment, when you put both negatives and put some light in the back part to see what's happening between them, it's magical because you move 1 millimeter and you find that lines encountering. When you use I don't know how to say it in English, but the aureal mathematics of, composition.
Mm-hmm.
When you do that, you're going to find that most of your photographs do have encounters between them because you're searching for, those points. And when you put them all together, oh yeah, that mountain was there, and now it's going to be here. So that's the way that I'm doing that series. It's beautiful, and it's like different because if you do 2 shots in the same negative, something happens with the emulsion. It lost some kind of contrast.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do the contrast equally on different negatives, then in the encounter goes beautifully and it has a beautiful contrast. I prefer to do that.
That's really cool. I would have assumed that it was taken on the same film, right? Like
Many
on the
people
same,
does.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty genius way to make much clearer and obviously visually appealing double exposures.
That's
because
right.
Both images maintain all of their complexities individually.
The range.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, congratulations on your sale. That's so funny
Thank
that
you.
it was yesterday. So
Yes.
what has the Web3 space taught you about your art, and what is the Web3 space for you in terms of being able to further your career?
So when I first came to the NFT space, I met Judy Lindsay. I don't know if you know her. It's a great photographer. Follow her. I'm going to DM you her user.
Mm-hmm.
She was one of the first people to sell NFTs, photography NFTs. And she sold actually a photograph from 1,000 ETH.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Yes, when of course it wasn't on this price,
right?
And it was like a couple of years ago,
mm-hmm.
and she was so delightful. It was when I was afraid because I'm pretty like introvert around social artistic social circles, so I was like, what's this gonna be like, more people to see. I'm not on that. I'm not that much on social media also. So, but Judy, it was a light, She immediately realized the intention behind my work. She put me on the spot, actually, and I got to know many artists from the NFT photography world. So they weren't many spaces in Spanish, and I started making spaces in Spanish for the Latin community, and I found my best friends as for today. Those are Zelda Jara, Sacoli, Ernesto Cisneros, Avingro, were many of them. I couldn't name them at all. And that's the best part of it.
Oh, yeah.
Because we're so alone as artists. We are pretty depressed people, and it's hard to be an artist in this crazy world. So, and this was like, okay, I'm an artist. I can wake up every day, even if I don't sell. I'm still an artist.
Yeah.
So I got my friends, I got my partners, whatever. They know what we are doing. That's beautiful, because you do a photograph on the lab, you develop the thing, you put it up, and your friends were, oh yeah, man, that was beautiful, whatever. And that's new for me.
Yeah.
Really. I was waiting. I'm in social media since the start of the internet, when we had those modems, and I was on many BBS, bulletin board system and things, but I never had this bunch of artists hanging up with me.
Yeah, I think I was gonna for me, I'm only 2 years into my photography journey. Were it not for this community of artists that I've been able to befriend online and bounce ideas off of, tell me if this is good, if this is bad, sharing common stories of both positives and negatives in the experience of being an artist, I don't think I could be doing what I'm doing today. It is this relationship of and community that I've been able to find that's been able to be like my biggest source of inspiration in terms of wanting to get out and continue to create. What inspires you to create art? Obviously, you've been doing it for a long time now. This is your life. It's your life's work. So what inspires you to continue to create?
To be different, to be in a different path. When I was a kid and I had to, choose for a career or whatever, I was heading the streets and I was, man, why is all this noise, man? You're hearing my noises here in my home, from the buses coming and going. And, I don't want to do this to the world. So my main inspiration is to be off the grid, if you wish to say it like that way. I don't want to be in that situation anymore, Even I prefer to, plant my own things, like my tomatoes or whatever, to survive and be as independent as possible. That's the main thing. And my partner, because I'm married with an artist also, she's a designer, pretty successful designer, and she's on the same path. Like we struggled so many years to live from our art, but now that we are so happy, because we are just using the car when we do have to go to a place in nature or anything that we do have to do. Otherwise, we're just living and not pretending anymore than that. That's the main inspiration. Of course, I'm always looking for new themes to go. As an example, we are heading for a documentary around Latin America about NFTs, because I have many friends in different countries, and we said, okay, I have my partner, in Ecuador, we do have a red camera with a Snyder lenses and a beautiful equipment to a cinematographic digital cinema equipment. And we were thinking, in fact, Sebastian, the owner of this camera, doesn't rent it for commercial things. He wants to use it just for cultural matters.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, yeah, there's some crazy people. I love these kind of people in this world, it's uncommon. And I told him, would you lend me the camera to go to 8 countries and shoot the existence around the NFT artists? Because it's a revolution in Latin America. Many people are living from it that weren't selling anything before that. And we want to document that stories, and also, of course, the beautiful landscapes of Latin America in every country. And this is a new inspiration, because inspirations come in a way of define yourself. For me, it's like, this is a new thing that we should be doing. So let's go, let's do it.
Yeah.
And that's all. I don't have many preconceived paths in my life.
I love that. I mean, you're there. There's an immense intentionality behind both of your work and your words that I find just wildly refreshing for me, because
Thank you. I'm glad that
yes,
was that.
You're welcome. It's nice for me because it is proof that you can live an artistic life and be fulfilled, and it doesn't necessarily have to be via checking X number of boxes on a bucket list that someone decided, when we're 18. Just doing sort of like a Q&A. Some of the questions are super easy. Some of them are a little bit more in depth. But my first question for you is, are you happy?
Yes, I am. Thankfully.
Good.
Thankfully, I am.
You've had a career that spanned a number of genres, a number of mediums, and a ton of success. If you had to look at the next chapter of what your career looks like, what is your biggest dream?
Oh, my biggest dream is to help more people, more artists, and become a collector, and trying to help more people that really needs to, get along with art, and they want to, rescue their sensibility.
I love that. I'm a person who, on a daily basis, the confidence that I have in my ability to create goes up and down. What gives you confidence?
Well, that's a tough question. I don't know, really. It's like a survival thing. What makes me encouraging to when I'm depressed, it's like, well, this is short, Life is really short. We're just a spark in the middle of the universe. So even if I don't know what to do, being here is enough. So I'm trying not to be that hard on me, because, we do have days and days. So let the time pass, and that's going to heal everything. Don't be that, hard on you. And that's what I'm trying to do, not being hard on me, just be here.
That's beautiful. Speaking of sparks, do you believe in an afterlife?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And before also, because, continuity in this universe is pretty obvious,
I agree.
You can't stop this.
Yeah.
You can't stop this.
I agree. What's your favorite book?
My favorite book should be, oh my God, that's a hard one. It should be, the Match Time that I mentioned before, from Gilles Deleuze.
Okay. What's your favorite movie?
Oh, my favorite movie, that's a hard one. I have two of them.
That's okay.
But I'm gonna recommend you one of them. And I can't pronounce the director because she's a Polish director, and it's a pretty hard, but Jestem is the name. is existence, the significant, the meaning around that gestem with J. And the other one would be a self-portrait of December from Jean-Luc Godard. That changed my life. It's a picture. It's a movie that doesn't have any copies more than the original ones. I think there are 10 35 millimeter copies that are, traveling around the world. And I got the chance I saw one of those copies in Ecuador, and Jean-Luc Godard Self-Portrait of December is a very, very touching movie for any artist.
Wow, that's awesome. What's your favorite food?
Well, it could be like seafood, because when I was a kid, I lived in Ecuador in the shores and around the sea. So for me, it's like seafood, if you wish.
What are you most proud of?
Oh my God, I'm proud of artists, really, and true artists. I'm proud of what they can do. They can do pretty hard things, just to get along with art. Yeah, I'm proud about artists, in fact.
I love that. What's the best piece of advice someone has ever given you?
Don't be hard on you. Don't be so hard on you. Don't be that, because we want to succeed so hard. That's so bad to do, because we don't know why we are here. No one's know why we are here. No one knows. So don't be hard on you at all. Just let yourself be. Yeah. That would be the best advice.
One of mine is stop worrying about the wreckage of the future. A lot of times, especially we as artists, are so focused intently on what may or may not transpire beyond the moment that we're in, that it can be a debilitating and
you can think of the future. You can search for the future. Of course, that's totally impossible not to do so, but don't try to control the future. That's not gonna do well.
Absolutely. My last question is, give me a recommendation for something that you've recently consumed. It can be a book you read, a podcast, a TV show, a movie, just something that you've recently consumed that you'd like everyone to check out.
Great question. I would say Henry Bergson. Bergson would be, he's a French philosopher, an old one. He has Introduction to Metaphysics. He has many papers around, and it's kind of for everyone's philosophy. It's not hard to do. It's a pretty delightful writing, and it does so well with artists. It's a companion. It's really a companion for artists. If you're struggling on what to do or what to think, grab any Bergson's book and you will be on your path again.
I love that. Gino, I'm immensely appreciative of your time today. That was the quickest hour I think I've done on this podcast in quite some time. It was just incredibly wonderful and joyful for me to have this conversation with you. You're an incredibly thoughtful and intentional person, and the fact that you chose to spend an hour of your day speaking with me for this podcast means a lot to me. I have a very cheesy line. If you've been on my podcast, you're part of my family. So welcome, and thank you so much for your time today.
No, it's my pleasure, John. You're delightful questions, and it's like, it was a meeting that was going on a spark. Thank you. I'm gonna follow your podcast more, and let's get in touch. Everyone can just DM me and be in touch. No worries at all. If you have anything to share or just need some advices for the NFTs, whatever, John, just don't hesitate to reach me again. Okay, it's a pleasure to have.
My pleasure as well. Take care.
Yeah.